All right. Hi, this is Python Dave. I'm going to create a video that kind of shows you how you can compare a list of invoices to a list of customers, kind of like you would expect from like customer master data to invoice data. One that's going to help you just kind of understand how to look up information between two tables, a little bit like a vlookup in Excel. The ways I think this can be useful for audit is potentially someone is manipulating the vendor master data or customer master data, and we're processing transactions against them, but maybe someone deleted something off of the customer table. We might want to research, why that happened. Maybe there's a legitimate reason, but also maybe someone's trying to conceal transactions that are happening. Also, this just helps overall if you're trying to join a set of data together. So this is how we'll do it in Python. First, I'm going to show you kind of what the input looks like. We have just kind of this example data. So in this example data, we're going to have invoice data. So invoice numbers and invoice amounts, and then customer IDs. So a lot of times that's all you'll see on potentially a table that's invoice related. You'll just see the ID, because most applications, if you're going to look up information, it's going to kind of join it on the back end. But if you look at information like this and you're just getting raw tables, you might just get an ID. And then on the customer table, it might look a little bit like this. It's going to have IDs, ID number, name, potentially a state. All right, so you can already kind of see we want to kind of join these IDs to the customer ID that's on the invoice table. And I've seen it a lot where on this table it'll say customer ID, a different table might say ID, and we'll kind of show you how to work with that. So we'll go ahead and close this. If you unzip your folder, whenever I give this out, it'll be in a link on the blog. Then you'll kind of go up here after you unzipped it and type Jupyter Notebook. All right, and it'll take just a little bit for the Jupyter Notebook to launch. Perfect. All right, so now it sees this Excel file. I'm going to create a new Python notebook. All right, and we're going to call this deleted customer lookup. All right, the first thing we almost always do is import pandas as PD. Okay, it's going to be our main data analysis library. Okay, now we need to import the two different tables. Okay, so we're just going to import the invoice data and call it df_inv. Okay, we need to get the name of the file. Normally how I'll do it. You got to make sure to get the extension as well. And since there's multiple sheets, we need to define the sheet we want. Right, do for customer. Now we can look at them real quick. Head's just going to show the first 5. Oh. All right, first 5. I think there's only that many on the customer table. All right. So the first step we need to do is we need to join them together. So we're going to put df because we're going to save this combined version just as df, or normally it stands for data frame, but it can actually be anything you want. If you have multiple data frames, it can be df1, df2, whatever you need it to be. All right, so pd.merge is going to be the command. All right, so you're going to want to put in your first data set and your second data set. And then if you know anything about joins, it does operate a lot like a join. I'll almost always put left. That basically means it's going to return every item on the left table, which in our case is the invoice table, whether or not it has a matching customer or not. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to see if an invoice does not have a customer, right? Um, and then we also noted that our column names for IDs are not the same. One it says customer ID, and one it says ID. So we're going to need to define that. So we'll put left on. Okay, so on the invoice column, we want to use customer ID. And on the right table, we want to use just ID. It is case sensitive, so you need to keep track of that. So now we have the data all combined. All right. So we can already kind of see from this data where our empty item is. And you can kind of tell that these are the columns that were in our invoice data, and these are the columns that were in our customer data, just kind of by looking at it. So you can see anytime it said customer one, it pulled over Mike, pulled over all the columns in that other table. So it's going to have Texas, Rebecca 2 and 2 here. And we can see it's empty here. So if we want to, now we can visually see it here, but if we have really large tables, we're going to want to just kind of filter it down so we can see. And this NaN is actually a null value. So it's kind of like an empty value where there's nothing there. So we're going to go ahead and write a filter for that. We're going to put df, and then we're going to filter it by, and we're just going to pick any of the columns that's in the customer, returning from the customer table. So we're just going to pick ID. We're going to put is NA. All right. So we can see it's going to return that. And then if you wanted to export it to Excel, you'd say invoices with deleted customers. And I almost always exclude the index just because I don't need it. It's really just this column on the left, the 6. All right. And now we have it in Excel. We could email whoever's in charge of vendor master and ask them, hey, we see this invoice that has no customer. So customer ID 9 on the invoice, but we have no customer 9 on the customer table. Please research this, help us understand what's wrong, and follow up like that. A couple other things I wanted to show you was, say we wanted to do this merge. Okay, but we don't want to include every column because maybe the customer table is going to be really long, and all we really want is ID and name. So what you can do on the customer table is you can just put a double brackets. So any columns that you list inside the double brackets, that's the only columns it's going to join on. So ID, and let's just put the name. All right, so whenever we do this, we're not going to get the state. All right, so there is no state in here. The other thing I wanted to show in this is just that, sometimes you might just use this for lookup, combining information. Maybe you want to total up the sales by that name. And this is how we'll do it. We'll put df. We're going to save it as dfg. We're going to copy df, and then we're going to group by, and we're going to do name. All right, so that's going to be like, and at least to me, it's like in a pivot table, this is the rows. This is what we're going to group information by. And then the next section is kind of the value that we want to use. So we're going to say total invoice. All right, and then you need to define an aggregate. So we're just going to put sum. All right, so let's save it there. All right, so now we can look below and see, $15 of invoices for David, 60 for Mike, 33 for Rebecca, 9 for Sarah. So if you wanted to do some type of a data analysis to just summarize things, you could do it like that as well. We could also have done it by state, since we had that in our customer data. Just kind of depends on what you want to do with it, how you want to group it. All right, the other thing we can do real quick is we can just do a basic plot. This is like the quickest way to do a plot. And it's a really simple one, just showing the picture, but it's just going to show David, Mike, Rebecca, and Sarah. All right. So that's kind of all I wanted to do in this one, just show you how you can do a lookup between two different data sets. The other things you could kind of try out is maybe not on this data set, but sometimes you have more than one left on and right on. Like potentially you want to join on a date, time, and user ID to pick up specific information. So you can join on more than one item than just customer ID. You can do customer ID and name if you needed to, if there was some unique conditions there. And the other thing is that for this left, the join for left, you can kind of look up different types of joins, but it's going to work very similar. There's going to be left, right, outer, and inner. And inner is the default, but I usually always use left because whenever I'm in audit, I'm trying to compare two data sets to see where something's not showing up. So normally I want to be able to say, okay, I have all my invoices. I want to see wherever the customer is not matching on the other side. And so I almost always use left whenever I am working with data sets. But again, it's going to basically return every single value on this left side. So in our case, it's going to return back every invoice. And if there's no customer on the customer table, again, they'll show up like an AM. But I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them in the box below, and I'll reply to as many as I can. But thanks a lot. Hope you guys have a good one.